And in the beginning of it all, a violent father throws his daughter Suzune out of the house, calling her a big mistake. She is then thrown into an isolated place where there is only a flower among all the mess. And after some time, Jinta, her brother, goes to the place to check on her, but he can't find her in that warehouse anymore. Then, Jinta starts running desperately, screaming her name until he finally finds her, but already far from the house. He then runs to her and apologizes to the girl, saying that he should have done something to stop it. At that, Suzune tells him to stop saying those things. After all, he would only end up getting in trouble if he tried to help her, so she asks him to forget about her and come back home soon. But instead of doing that, Jinta pulls her by the arm and runs away with her. They then take shelter in an abandoned place to spend the night, until suddenly a man named Motoharu reaches out to them, promising to take them to a safe place. But before he can take that man's hand, Jinta ends up passing out and only wakes up a few hours later, already being carried by Motoharu. And as soon as he sees that the boy is already woken up, he puts Jinta on the ground and tells him to walk alone. And moving on, they arrive at Motoharu's house, who is soon greeted by his daughter. The girl then notices Jinta and Suzune right behind her father and asks who they are. At that, the man informs his daughter that those two homeless children will live with them from now on. Hearing this, his daughter, still not understanding anything, asks if they will stay at their house. And then Motoharu decides to be more direct and says that he will make them part of the family. At this, the girl smiles and goes towards the two, introducing herself as Shirayuki. At this, Jinta reciprocates by introducing himself back, and as for Suzune, she is initially shy and unable to say anything, but soon after, she composes herself and manages to introduce herself too. And when night falls, everyone goes to bed to sleep. However, Jinta remains awake without being able to sleep a wink. When he sees Motoharu holding a katana, Jinta deduces that he is a samurai. However, the man corrects him, saying that he is actually a sentry. Therefore, he works to keep important things and people safe. Well, the next day, when they wake up, they go outside and meet Kato's, one of Shirayuki's friends. And at the end of the afternoon, everyone returns to their homes. And on the way, Jinta says that Shirayuki's mother's name is Yokazi, and that she was the one responsible for getting permission for him and his sister to live in the village of Kadono. Having said that, Jinta finds it strange that her mother never leaves that shrine. And then, Shirayuki says that her mother is an Itsukiheim, but upon hearing this strange term, Jinta asks what that is. And Shirayuki explains that this is a secondary name for the god of fire, which in this case is an entity that can only be seen by a few people, namely the village chief and her father. After all, the rules say that the Itsukiheim cannot interact with ordinary people, because doing so could end up tarnishing her sacred powers. And precisely because it is difficult to get access to her, Shirayuki saw her for the last time many years ago. Having said that, she calls everyone to come home soon. Upon returning, Jinta faces Motoharu in a swordsmanship training match and feels sad about losing the match, even though it was just a training match. Shirayuki goes to him and tries to cheer him up a little. And suddenly, the scene jumps forward a few years when Jinta meets with the new priestess, Shirayuki, to talk about the last demon he hunted. After all, he is now the newest sentinel of the village. And when talking about the demon, Jinta informs her that he came to the village disguised as a human. In this, an old man deduces that the demon came to the village in search of their princess, because by eating the fresh liver of an Itsukiheim, they are able to become immortal. And although this is just a legend, he believes in this possibility, because the previous Itsukiheim, Yokazi, did in fact have her liver devoured by a demon. And they only managed to end the monster after Motoharu gave his life in combat. But upon hearing the old man's suggestion, the priestess counters and says that the demon may be after the Yari sword to gain more power. Suddenly, Kiyomasa, the other Shrinala, begins to insult Jinta for no reason, but is soon reprimanded by Shirayuki. After everyone leaves the place, Jinta is taken to Suzune, who goes to the place just to see him, but he scolds her, saying that she is not allowed to go to that shrine. Suddenly, upon hearing someone approaching the shrine, Suzune runs away. Then, that old man from before approaches the princess and asks to speak with her alone. At that, Jinta leaves the place and begins to remember a conversation he had with Shirayuki a long time ago, when she had told him that she would become a Itsukiheim. After all, she wants to follow in the same footsteps as her mother, who loved that village to the point of sacrificing herself for the place. And although Shirayuki has this as her goal, she is saddened by the fact that she will no longer be able to see Jinta if she truly becomes an Itsukiheim. But upon hearing this, he reassures her and promises that he will try his best to accompany her on her journey. And while returning to the present, Shirayuki goes to Jinta's house to visit him and spend the day with him and Suzune. But after eating something, she comes up with the idea of taking Jinta out to eat some dango, leaving Suzune alone at home. Then they go to Kato's mother to buy dango, and upon seeing her, Shirayuki is surprised to notice that Kato's no longer recognizes her. However, Jinta reminds her that the two have not seen each other since childhood, so it is natural that the girl has forgotten about her over time. And well, as the afternoon falls, they start to return home, and on the way, Shirayuki apologizes apologizes for having kept him busy that day just to satisfy her whims. However, Jinta shows that he is only concerned with knowing if she is really happy with that. And as for her, Shirayuki says that she wanted to take him to that place just to tell him something. In this case, she will start calling herself Byakuya and reveals that she will marry Kiyomasa, the same man from before who insulted him for no reason. And even though he is not one of the best people to marry, Shirayuki informs him that Kiyomasa will be the future chief of the village, so their marriage will be more diplomatic than anything else. And although she had thought about running away with him from that village, Shirayuki believes that he would not agree to do something like that. After all, he trained to the bone to be by her side as her sentinel, supporting her on her journey as a Tsukiheim. And on another day, Jinta receives the mission to go to the taboo forest to defeat some demons that were sighted there. And as for Kiyomasa, he will stay in the village to protect Kodono. And well, upon hearing his task, Jinta leaves the place immediately, promising to end the demons as soon as possible, until suddenly, Kiyomasa goes to him and asks if Jinta has already heard about his marriage with Byakuya. To this, Jinta simply answers yes, without showing any strong reaction. And upon hearing such a direct and emotionless answer, Kiyomasa asks him to say what he really thinks about it. And as for Jinta, he again says that he doesn't see anything wrong with the two's marriage, and instead of thinking about it, Jinta only thinks about the happiness of the princess and that of the entire village. However, this answer is still not enough to convince Kiyomasa that Jinta is not in love with Shirayuki either. However, Jinta continues to ignore him and just returns to his task. And upon arriving at the taboo forest, he encounters the first demon and then begins the fight. And as for Suzune, she is approached by the second demon, who begins walking towards her, saying that the two are demons. But upon hearing this, Suzune goes into denial, saying that she is actually human. At this, the demon reminds her that loving Jinta is the only action she has that makes her minimally human. And to take advantage of this, the demon says that there is someone about to hurt Jinta, so she asks Suzune to go with her and lend her her power so that they can stop it. And to make her more certain of this, the demon promises that he will not hurt her and then reaches out to take her hand. However, Suzune refuses to go with her anyway, because even if she does not hurt her, the demon can still try something against Jinta. Upon hearing this, she brings her finger close to Suzune's forehead and makes her have a vision of Jinta and Kiyomasa in an intimate moment, making the girl vomit at the same time. After doing so, the demon claims to have the power to show anyone a brief moment in the future. But Suzune is disbelieving with what she sees and says that this is not real. At this, the demon reaches out to her again and invites her to get this story straight in person. And upon hearing this, Suzune is finally convinced to go with the entity. And returning to Jinta, he questions the demon, asking why he causes harm to human beings, and he responds that he does so only because it is in his nature. Therefore, he has no way of controlling his urge to kill humans. Upon hearing this, Jinta promises that he will show him no mercy and finally defeats the demon, but loses his arm during the conflict. And before dying, the demon informs him that his partner has the power of foresight, and according to her, the demon of all demons lives in that village, and that's why they put her on their radar. And in the meantime, Kiyomasa goes after Shirayuki like a dog in heat, wanting to do things. However, she asks them to at least wait for Jinta to return to be sure that he is at least safe. But right after saying this, she remembers her purpose as a Tsukiheim, and then forgets Jinta momentarily, and then continues what Kiyomasa was wanting. And suddenly, that demon from before goes to the place with Suzune and tells her that that scene was real and not a false projection. And upon seeing it in person, Suzune finally believes the demon's words and asks why Shirayuki is doing that. Meanwhile, Jinta wakes up from his fight with the last demon and rushes to find Suzune, who in turn reprimands Shirayuki, as she was sure that she was in love with Jinta and not with another guy. Shirayuki tries to deny everything, but Suzune demands a better explanation. And seeing her being so incisive, Shirayuki realizes that the girl is saying all that to defend her brother's honor. And although Suzune's motives are noble, Shirayuki reminds her that she now lives as a Tsukiheim, so she needs to focus only on preserving Kodono's legacy. And upon hearing that she intends to abandon Jinta for the sake of the village, Suzune becomes even more irritated with her. And as for the demon, she approaches the girl and begins to instigate even more feelings of revolt in Suzune, saying that while Jinta gives his life for Shirayuki, she stabs him in the back, as she seems to find it hilarious to see him fight so much without Jinta knowing the truth. With that said, the demon asks Suzune if she doesn't get angry seeing all this injustice being done to her brother. And while Suzune is being brainwashed, Shirayuki tries to scream at her that Suzune is being deceived, but she ends up being completely manipulated and starts to believe that Shirayuki should be dead. Then, Suzune assumes her adult demon form and decides to start the fight. As for Kiyomasa, he threatens to draw his katana, but the demon that accompanies Suzune stops him from trying anything and says that this is a fight between women only. And suddenly, Jinta appears in the middle of all that chaos, and then he welcomes Shirayuki, who runs and throws herself into his arms. But out of nowhere, her head is cut off by Suzune. Then, the girl goes to them with Shirayuki's head in her hands and with a smile on her face, believing that she has just done a good deed. At this, Jinta is flooded with memories of when he met Shirayuki arrives in the present day and then goes after Suzune, but misses the blow. And then, Suzune questions why he is doing that, and little by little, Jinta understands that being is actually his sister, and upon realizing this, he asks why she did this to Shirayuki, and Suzune informs him that she killed her for him, so she finds it strange that he is not smiling. At this, Jinta becomes even more confused than before, and questions her about the meaning of this. She then reminds him that the princess was about to marry another guy even though she said she was in love with him. So Suzune believes that she was just an opportunist who lied about her feelings for Jinta, and taking this into consideration, Suzune says that it doesn't make sense for him to be so sad. Upon hearing all this nonsense, he tells her to stop talking, but instead of complying with his request, Suzune continues talking and reminds him that now he won't have to go through the stress of seeing Shirayuki marry another guy. Having said that, she smiles again and asks them to go home quickly. After all, she is exhausted from the last battle she had against the princess. As for him, Jinta continues with the same serious expression on his face and says that Suzune betrayed all the good people of Kodono who raised them as her own, so he gets angry when he sees her say that she is just exhausted with everything she did. And right after saying this, he finally understands that the Suzune he knew is long gone, and then he starts attacking her as if he no longer knows who she is. And upon seeing this, Suzune is frightened by him and says that Jinta will do to her what everyone has always done. In this case, he will abandon her. And as soon as she understands this, Suzune begins to attack him for real, promising that she will take him to hell. But in the middle of the fight, she begins to get the worst of it. And then, the demon that accompanied Suzune saves her and tells her to flee the place as soon as possible. She then heads to the door and says that by losing Jinta, she practically lost the bond that connected her to humans. So she promises that she will start acting according to her demonic instincts. In this case, Suzune will destroy nations, kill humans, and ruin anything that appears in front of her. Having said that, Suzune finally leaves the place, and as for the demon that guided her, she dies happy because she managed to fulfill her objective. Then, Jinta takes Shirayuki's body and regrets not having been able to do anything to save her even though he promised to protect her. And well, another day, Jinta decides to move from Kodono to start training from scratch, with the intention of preparing himself for the attack of the demon god, who will arrive in that land soon. And upon hearing this, an old man next to him reminds him that the so-called demon god is Suzune, his sister. But even though it is her, Jinta says he is willing to fight her, even if he has to kill her. Upon hearing this, the old man disagrees with him, saying that this is not what his heart wants. However, Jinta says that even though Suzune is his sister, he also loved Shirayuki, therefore, he cannot help but hate her killer, even if it is Suzune. But even though the solution is possibly to kill his sister, Jinta says that he intends to find a peaceful solution to resolve things. And seeing that he still aims for a peaceful solution, the Lord feels more relieved, as he imagined that Jinta had completely transformed into a demon, and therefore would only have slaughter as a solution to any problem. Having said that, the Lord hands over Yari to him and makes him official as her owner from now on. And following tradition, he adds the kanji for night to Jinna's name, and now he goes by the name Jinya. After that, he leaves Kodono village and thinks again about what that demon from before had told him about the attack that Kodono village will reappear in 170 years. He then goes to an Itsukiheim from another village and asks to speak with her. Apparently thinks they will get much more intense. If you want the continuation, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. I went.